Hello and welcome to the Property Manager as Guest. My name's Leo Walton. In this week's episode, we chat with Lisa Rhodes, founder of the Holiday Property Coach, a short-term rental business and brand strategist. Find out how Lisa created property management services and a market for her rentals in Cyprus, and how that led to her current business as a holiday property coach. We also learn how she chooses and onboards new hosts and why it's all about so much more than just exchanging contracts. There is more with Lisa in this week's episode of The Property Manager as Guest. Today, I'm really delighted to be joined by Lisa. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, Leo. Thank you for joining us, having me on your podcast today.
We're delighted to have you on. And for anyone who doesn't know who you are, let me introduce you. You are a short-term rental business and brand strategist. Now, Lisa, tell us how you got there. What was the journey like to get to this point?
I think, like a lot of people, I fell into it by accident. I mean, I think that's a true story for so many property managers. I did not intentionally go out to be a property manager. I have had a background in corporate life, like a lot of people. I have been a property investor and owner since my early 20s, traditional buy-to-lets. And at the time that I started investing in short-term rental properties, I actually had a successful marketing agency in the UK. So I had no intentions of being a property manager. About 2002, 2003, I started looking to diversify my property investment portfolio, and I started exploring other markets, and I landed on Cyprus as a new, very immature, emerging investment market. And I started to invest in some off-plan properties in Cyprus. So fast forward a couple of years when they've been completed, I anticipated naively, like a lot of investor owners, that all the services that I was going to need for my properties would be in existence by the time my properties were ready to go. And the truth of the matter was they didn't exist. And as an entrepreneur, I recognized that these services, as in, getting my property furnished and my inspection build, post-build inspections done, and interior design and furnishing, property management, rental services, they just weren't there. The market was too immature. So my first step towards becoming a property manager was I created a service called the Investor Complete service. I needed it for my own properties, and there were lots of people on the same complex as me also needed that service, which was basically take an empty property, interior design it, pull together the budgets, the inventories, the buying of all the, everything you're going to need for that property, and then project manage the installation of it within about 6 weeks. That doesn't sound like a terribly long time, but when you bear in mind the Cyprus is an island, and those products didn't exist on the island. We didn't have IKEAs and big department stores and things. Lots of furnishing items didn't exist. So I had to purchase those outside of Cyprus and organise them to be shipped to Cyprus and get them through customs, and then organise a team to go and do the actual installation of those projects. And, I got very busy very quickly. It grew legs very fast. I mean, much faster than I expected. And I was still running this business in the UK. So I just kind of got so many people saying, well, can you do it for me? Can you do that for my properties as well? And I was kind of, yes, of course I can. Of course I can. And this thing just grew legs really fast. So take that forward a little bit further. And then when we got these properties, ready to go, they needed management and they needed rental bookings. And that then created another problem for these owners like myself, which was this is a very, very immature market. There were some parts of Cyprus that were very established for the holiday sector, Central Paphos, some parts of Limassol. But some of the areas we had owned properties in were not known by holiday guests. They were a bit further out. So that's when my marketing experience kind of became sort of helpful. And as much as I then had to create that market for these guests that didn't know about these areas and where we wanted people to come and stay. So I layered on my services, really. I started with this Investor Complete service, and then I layered on the property management support that then these clients kind of naturally were it was like a sales funnel of getting people into my management services. And then we layered on the rental marketing services, because unless you offered a turnkey service, the investment didn't really work for people. And that's kind of how I got into property management.
Very interesting. So not only were you kind of, there, I think probably much further ahead of tech-enabled home sharing, right? But you create a market because you created that turnkey solution, right? So that's really important. That's where your business strategy hat comes in, right? Like you were finding that there was a gap. You were helping people, enabling people to create supply for themselves on the island. Amazing. And You must have found that incredibly rewarding.
It had lots of challenges, just the logistical challenges were quite a big headache, which I think that's where the service really sold itself, is that if you look at an investor owner, they pretty much want to be hands off. They had their primary, role jobs in wherever they lived. They weren't all from the UK, and to offer them a service where I could take everything off their hands and just make it happen in a few weeks was like, nirvana for them, really, because they just didn't want to do it. Like, for them to go over for a couple of weeks, you've got their flight costs, their hotel costs, their travel costs, their the running around like a headless chicken trying to pull together a furnishing scheme of some description from what was available in Cyprus. It would have been a real headache for them. So I knew that that was a really good service because it didn't exist on the island. Furniture packages didn't exist for some years on the island. So I knew it was a very good strategy to be able to go to companies that were selling investment properties and say, I've got a solution for your investor owners that you're going to need, because selling them a property is just one part of the investment. If they don't have something that then allows them to get this property on the market quickly, they're going to start getting a bit fed up because it's not going to start generating money for them. So that's the other part of my strategy, was forming those strategic relationships with those companies that were selling those properties and offering this service to their clients, which made them look good. So they were also part of my sales funnel. And as I said, it just grew very quickly. I didn't really have to go out and look for a lot of clients. They kind of came to me once I'd formed those strategic partnerships.
You sorted the acquisition funnel, right? You got your acquisition.
Yeah, absolutely. Funnel. Absolutely. Yeah. And I was very clear. That's who our clients were. They were hands-off investors who really knew about numbers. I was that client avatar myself. So I knew exactly what I needed. I wanted a very professional service. I didn't want a neighbour holding my keys. I wanted a limited company who were going to be responsible for a very valuable asset, who were going to contract with me properly, and who were going to tell me what they were going to do and then go away and do it. And that's kind of what we did.
You must have had to give these builders, landlord types, you must have had to give a commission, right, to find to be part of that journey?
I didn't, and it's interesting because on an island like Cyprus, what became very apparent to me was that people were what I call Mr. 10%. They were basically, you cost money across my hand but I actually had a service that they needed to offer to their clients, and I did it very well, and I looked after their clients, and their clients were happy. So I actually didn't pay commission to anybody, but neither have I ever taken commission for, it's just not a model I like. I prefer to be independent of that. I'd like to think that people come to me because I do a good job, and I'm not interested in, pay me commission and, and I'll refer something to you. Equally, all of my contracts I work with, I took them on as professional contract people with great skills, and I needed them as part of my team because they were going to do a good job, but I paid well for those people. I paid well for the staff that came part of my team, and I attracted people because we paid well and we offered great terms and we looked after our team that worked with us. And that's kind of how I built the business.
Also coming up in this week's episode of The Property Manager as Guest, Lisa Rhodes, founder of The Holiday Coach, explains that OTAs and tech are helpful tools, but that the core messages of what you offer and whom and why are far more important when it comes to creating a market for yourself. And I can tell you've got this partnerships background as well, right? Because you're talking about creating these real partnerships, incentivizing the people who work with you, pay them very well, making them feel very part of the business growth. And
pay them on time. Very key, very key.
Crucial.
Pay your suppliers absolutely on the nose, and they will always come back to you, and they will always do a good job for you.
Obviously you had a really well-defined onboarding funnel for new properties.
Yeah.
So would you know instantly if a deal was for you or not? Was it kind of like, that's in the right area by the sea? And then how many deals would you turn down as a percentage?
It wasn't just the property was the right property acquisition. It was equally the owner has to be the right partnership too. And I was very clear about that. If I ever had a relationship where I just felt that it wasn't a good fit, I learned very quickly, don't buy bad business. Don't take on a property that's not right for your portfolio. So, if I had an owner, for example, who perhaps didn't want to use our Investor Complete service and wanted to do it themselves, but I knew I was going to end up with a product that wasn't right for the clients that we were targeting for rentals, I wouldn't take it on. I learned very quickly it was just not worth the pain, because you then struggled all the time to make that owner understand why their product wasn't working in the market, because they'd not really invested in the in the foundations of it to be right for the market. And that was a lesson I learned very early on. Don't take on any property at any cost. One of the questions you were going to ask me is, what have you learned that you got wrong? One of the things was, don't hold on to those relationships, signpost them to somewhere else, because you need to invest your time in the relationships that are a win-win for both of you, whether that's a strategic partnership or a client landlord. It has to be a win-win. Otherwise, it's just exhausting and very frustrating for everybody.
Good answer. Comes up time and time again. This idea that it's a relationship. It's a maker who uses it occasionally. It's their relationship with the bricks and mortar that's really interesting. And I suppose you can either learn that by trial and error, right? And you get burned.
And culturally, I dealt with different owners from different parts of the world. So that was very interesting as well. We become familiar with perhaps culturally dealing with clients from where we live. But when you start dealing with other nationalities, they've got different cultural perspectives on investment and what's right and what they want for their properties. And some owners are very hands-on and like very detail orientated, and some people are very hands-off and don't want to know anything. And you have to learn to adapt to provide the support, the information, the detail that those people want. It doesn't always work that everyone wants to be bombarded with everything. Some owners just wanted their statement into them. Just tell me what I've got coming in. That's all I want to know. Other owners wanted to know a lot more. So like in terms of building relationships, you kind of learn that you have to be a bit of a chameleon when you're running a business, and you have to kind of understand what it is your clients really need from you in order to secure that relationship. Onboarding wasn't just a case of like, I've taken your property on, here's your contract, now let's get on with it. Onboarding actually is about bedding people into trusting you to do a good job. And some clients that takes a bit longer, and some people are like, just get on with the job.
You were doing all of this remotely as well. You never lived
Absolutely.
in Cyprus?
Didn't live in Cyprus. No, I had my own properties in Cyprus. I actually bought a property to live in when I was working in Cyprus. And in the early days, I was over there a lot. People did think I lived over there, but I used EasyJet like a bus, pretty much. In fact, EasyJet actually did an article on me saying, you seem to spend a lot of time on EasyJet. Why are you traveling so much to Cyprus? It's like a bus for me. I'm going to work, really. And equally, people said, did you have a nice holiday? And I'm like, not on a holiday, and I've not got a suntan because I haven't been near the beach. I'm here working. So people thought that was quite funny. As the business grew, I basically worked on the business, primarily from the UK, and I grew a team in Cyprus with managers in different areas who then managed the teams on the ground in those different areas. And that was my model. And that was what I was always aiming for.
What tips would you give people who don't live in the market that they're working in, like you didn't? Like what pitfalls, mistakes, or just advice?
I think you need to understand your local market really, really well, like really get under the skin of the local market. I think you need to establish really, really strong relationships on the ground that are going to back you up when things go pear-shaped, because inevitably in this business, they always will. And in fact, somebody said to me, when business is difficult, that's the norm. When it's going smoothly, actually, that's not normal in property management, because by the nature of the beast, it's going to challenge you most days. So I was very fortunate because I am very strong in building those relationships. What I had was a lot of people backing me from a long way away that I could pick up the phone to and say, I've got a challenge. Could you please step up and help me? And they would do it. But, that takes time to build those relationships. And that, everything from my car hire guy, bailing guest that turned up without any information in the middle of the night, to plumbers that would turn up, on a Sunday morning when there was a problem. Those relationships were absolutely pivotal in supporting our operations when we needed them. Employ good team members. Like I employed the best I could, and I trained all of my team members to standardize what we did so that we were consistent in the level of service we were offering to both landlords and guests in every area that we operated. And that was really important to me in terms of our brand values, consistency of quality, of professional care.
You exited in 2021. Why 2021? And had you always built the business with a plan to exit?
Yeah, I probably ran it a bit longer than I anticipated because it was growing, and it was a very profitable business. We operated profitably pretty much every year, which was great. I loved the clients we were supporting, so I was very passionate about the business. I loved the team that I had working with me. And I couldn't have even possibly anticipated the pandemic, which was kind of in the middle of when I was trying to transition the business. Not ideal. But, Brexit was, when I first started working in Cyprus, they weren't part of the EU. So I started doing this business before they joined the EU. Then they joined the EU. So that meant things were a lot easier, reciprocal tax agreements for owners and that kind of thing. But then Brexit was on the horizon. And the minute Brexit happened, I kind of knew things were going to get a bit trickier. for us legally. Things changed, financially things changed, tax agreements changed, and it was going to mean like 2 separate companies, lots of different employment regulations, and just the whole thing was going to get a bit more difficult. So I actually had anticipated that, and I kind of started planning towards an exit strategy about 3 years before I actually finally exited.
So we talk about these once in a generation shocks that happen to the economy, and we've had 2 of them, right? Yeah. Which is Brexit and COVID. And you were trying to sell during both of them. Amazing timing, right? But proof that if you have a plan.
I'm surprised I've got grey hair. yeah. Oh, I probably have under this. I just colour it well. But it is very stressful. Selling a business is stressful. And when I spoke at the Exit Door in Barcelona a few weeks ago, I kind of said, I was honest, it's a roller coaster. And I have to be honest about that. Nothing in business typically goes very smoothly all the time, but selling a business is something you have to be very prepared to go through a bit of a roller coaster to achieve. And the first people you talk to may not be the people you end up selling to. That's the thing I also learned. I think you have to decide from the very beginning when you're going to sell your business, get your house in order, make sure that you've got good financial health in your business, you've got great strong contracts with your owners, what you want from the sale, kind of know what model you want in terms of what you're selling, and whether you're selling the whole business, because I actually didn't sell the whole business. I retained the rental side of the business quite deliberately initially. I went out to look for the best fit I could, not just for me for a sale, but also for our clients, for our landlord clients. That was really important to me, and it might not be important to other people. Some people might just go, I just want to sell my business. For me, the fit in terms of transitioning my clients was very important to me, and the first the first conversation I had wasn't a best fit. And the second one turned out not to be the best fit. It's a bit like Goldilocks and the 3 bears. The third one was a best fit. And that's the one I went with in the end. Yeah.
Very, very, very interesting. Now, you made this journey, I think, knowing about your business background and how you built your property management business. You went on this journey into being a short-term rental business strategy advisor to other property managers. Can you tell us about how that happened and what you enjoy about that today?
Well, it's funny, because of course, during selling a business, I wasn't able to get onto the island of Cyprus during the pandemic. So for the first kind of year, I had a sort of a mentoring transition agreement within the sale. So for most of the pandemic, I was kind of quite busy helping with the transition and mentoring the new owner. And then I kind of wasn't really that sure about what I was going to do. I actually was invited to do some what I call generic business consulting with some startup businesses, which was enjoyable to a degree, but I kind of missed the hospitality aspect of it. They weren't in hospitality. And I kind of just thought, there's a no-brainer here, really. I've got years of experience, not just business experience, not just my corporate experience, but I've got years of setting up a business, scaling a hospitality business experience, and I should really do something with that. So my intentions was always really to share that knowledge, to help other people, to avoid some of the mistakes that could be costly, time-consuming, delay their progress. And that's kind of how and also my marketing background, kind of that's where the brand strategy comes in, really. It was really combining all of that experience and saying, this is what I can offer to other property managers who want to scale their business. That's kind of how I decided and landed where I am now.
Do you love it?
I do love it. I love it. When I meet other business owners, I think there's just nothing nicer than hearing about like what they're doing and how they're doing it. When you've done it for so long, you can see what someone's doing and you look at their business with like a helicopter pair of eyes and you go, well, you could do this, and have you thought about doing that, and what about this? And they're like, oh yeah, it's obvious but sometimes you just need that pair of eyes who are a little bit removed from the business to think about those things, because you're so busy in the business, it's sometimes difficult to take that step back.
Do you think that you have an advantage or something to share with people based on the fact that your business predates the tech-enabled aspect of home sharing, right? So like you're more aware of the marketing channels. I think lots of property managers that started in the last 5 to 10 years, it's just a given that you use OTAs. Is that something that you think is an advantage?
It is about building relationships and not having the tech, the PMS tech and the channels management tech that there is now meant that we had to build those relationships. So I went out and I built relationships with all sorts of travel agencies and partners in all different countries where they could help us to promote what we were offering and introduce holiday guests to us. So that's how we built our rental channels when we didn't have the tech that people have now. And I think what I see today is that, and there's nothing wrong with OTAs, and I definitely think they're part of the marketing mix, and tech definitely helps to get those channels out there more efficiently. but I still think people need to think about what is it you offer to who and why, and that messaging sometimes gets lost in the noise a bit. What is so special about your property, your stay experience, your location, and who are you really trying to attract? And I don't see a lot of people making enough effort with that. Whether you use your OTA channel or whatever channel to use, I think that's an important piece of the ingredient that you must get right no matter what you use, whether you use tech or you use relationships. People have got to know what it is you're offering, why it's important to who, and why they should come and stay with you. The advice I'm giving to property managers now is, your OTA channels, that they're not the necessary evil that people talk about. I think they're an integral part of your marketing mix. Who are the people that they're really booking with? They need to know about you and why you're going to look after them. And that trust piece is such an important point, because without that, why would they book with you? I think it's something that we work very hard on, and that's why clients came back to us year after year, not just because they liked Cyprus, but because they knew they could trust booking with us. So most of our bookings were direct. We really didn't rely on the OTAs very much, actually. And I said to the owners, what we're trying to do is get people not just come back once, come back again and again and again, and to refer people to us because we did a good job, that the property was what they said it was going to be, that they didn't turn up to a problem with the swimming pool, that they could find where they were going, that there was 24-hour support when they needed it. I do see a host now talking about, it's a self-catering property. Why do they need all this help? And I'm like, well, but why wouldn't you give them that help? This is about being different. This is about offering a hospitality service. And if you forget that, what are you actually really offering? You're offering just a property. Well, they could go and book a hotel, So I think this is a really important message to people now, is your differentiator has to be, you are offering a hospitality service and people need to know that you care. I think the automation is what I'd say the back end of your business. It's the bit that shouldn't be that visible. I think we mustn't hide behind automation. I think particularly after COVID, people are now back to wanting a relationship with people and wanting to know that you're there. And I think we removed so much of that when we went through the pandemic, where everything was done so remotely and you didn't ever see anybody. And I think we need to come back into AI and tech has its place in your business. It's the back end office of your business, but people must see who you are. I think people need to see the people, particularly with the risk of scamming being so prevalent today and fraud being so prevalent. I think don't hide behind the tech. Make sure people know who you are and why you are going to look after them. I think that's really important.
One of the things that you talk about is supporting women in the STR industry.
Yes.
What are some of the challenges that you've seen women entrepreneurs, leaders in the space encounter, and how can you help support them?
I know there are lots of women in the hospitality space. There always have been. But I noticed when I started going into consulting that I didn't see too many of them. I wasn't seeing so many of them at events. Worked in a tech space for years. I was head of international partnerships in two tech companies, where I was the only female senior director in the company. So I know what that feels like. It's not an unusual space for me. But I really feel like we need to encourage female business owners to stand up and have a voice and be seen. And a lot of them, they're just quietly doing the work, but they don't feel like they want to put their head above the parapet and be seen, and I don't know why that is. I think everybody suffers with imposter syndrome. I don't know why women sort of just don't feel like they can speak their ambition and they just kind of get on with it. But I'd like to change that. I'd like to see more property manager. I mean, I work with a lot of female property managers, and I'd like to see them out there telling people their stories and promoting their businesses and standing up on stages and telling people what they do. So diversity of voices, everybody has different skills. This is what I said when I worked in a tech space, and I can remember joining this tech company, being the only woman in the whole of the space, and the engineers going, so what does she bring? Like, she's not a techie, she's not an engineer, like what's she bringing to the table? I'm like, I've got different skills, like we can actually complement each other. And it took them quite a long time to recognize that they at first glance they kind of thought, well, she doesn't even come from this space, like what.
You've been in the industry a long time. What has changed? What's different now than when you were getting started?
Well, obviously the tech has changed massively in terms of how it helps the back end of your business. That didn't exist when I started my business. I had to have something kind of fudged to work for what I needed it to do, which was not ideal. the fact that we've got instant messaging and WhatsApp for business and, even AI, there's so many tools out there that are now so helpful if you know how to use them for your business. In the past, it was just like a bed and breakfast, and now we are a whole experience sector. And I think that's really important. We definitely serve a space in the market for people that don't want hotels and don't just want a B&B. And we can make our business whatever's right for our clients. I think that's really exciting, that you can pretty much, when you know what your client wants, you can build your business around that. That's changed a lot. It never used to be like that. Although having said that, from the very beginning, I always offered an experience-based service to our clients. We always had those extra services right from the beginning: wedding services, baby equipment, car hire, airport transfers, welcome packs, all of those things we always offered from the very beginning. So even 20 years ago, we were doing that. But I think that guests now want more. So I think we have to recognise that.
Do you think property managers are doing enough or not?
I think I find the models that I see people using today a bit interesting, and I'm not sure how viable some of them are. I see the commission-based model being used quite a lot at the moment, where they just charge a percentage of gross rental, and that's what they're monetizing their whole business on. And I think that's quite a tricky model to just finance your entire growth on without some significant investment. Because my model was different. I had a management fee structure and a commission structure, and we charged for extra services, and we offered all these additional services. So we had multiple revenue streams coming in. And I think that's the best structure to have actually for a business, because you're not then solely dependent on, bookings for revenue. I think that leaves gaps in your financial planning if you solely rely on that. I do see a lot of people running on that model at the moment, and I do question how they are, managing their cash flow through the year when you have, lull periods and shoulder periods in your season. And I think that, that is quite interesting that has changed. I see the model where they're just charging a percentage of commission, and I see them just as super hosts, really, because when they talk about property management, they're not really property managers. They're not really managing the property proactively as we did, several visits a month, maintaining the pools, the gardens, the air conditioning, the water systems, housekeeping, cleaning, laundry, all of that. So I think you have to decide what is a property manager. What does that mean to you? Because I think it means different things to different people. So in the UK, for example, you might be a property manager where your owner actually lives and resides next door to the property, in which case they may want to do some of those things. And I think you have to build your services around the needs of your landlords. Like your property management services need to be wrapped around your landlords, really.
Lisa, tell me, what do you love most about the short-term rental industry?
Serving people, taking care and serving people. I've grown up in an entrepreneurial family where we were service-based businesses at home, and my dad always said, look after your clients. In fact, even when from a very small child, if we picked up the phone, it was, "Hi, I'm Lisa. This is what we do. How can I help you?" And that kind of stayed with me all my life. So it's kind of, how can I serve you? What can I do to help you? What can I do to make your day better?
It's a tough industry. Clearly, peak seasons can be really intense. Over the years, what techniques have you used to kind of relax and get away from it? What do you like to do?
It's quite difficult when I was running it 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It was difficult to get away. But now I like to get out in nature. I have a dog. I adopted a rescue dog during lockdown. She was a very good reason to get out more. Definitely that 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we need to go for a walk. I live in the countryside, so I'm very lucky with that. But, I'm a great kind of camper, which people might not know about me. I equally like nice boutique places and stuff, but I do love getting out in nature. Being near the sea, near water is a great relaxant for me. It's very grounding, I think, being near water.
Yeah, I think you're right. I like that. And it's also just takes you out. Like being on the road's good, isn't it? Yeah, like we talked about this at another point, but the journey somewhere can also be just
absolutely.
Right?
Sometimes you're stuck in the office and all you're seeing is challenges every day, and it is stressful managing big teams of people. I think taking care of people, you sometimes forget to look after yourself. And I do say to the owners that I work with, make sure there's space for you, because if you burn yourself out, what have you got left to offer your team? And they need you to be like in peak fitness. So like, don't forget to look after you too.
Yeah, it's really good advice. Lisa, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you as it always is.
It's been a great time to chat. No, you're very welcome, and thank you for your time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. Also, follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram @Superhog for more useful and educational information. If you have questions or you'd like to be featured on a future show, get in touch with us in the comment section below. And if you've enjoyed the show, please share our podcast with someone you think may enjoy it too. Goodbye for now.